Hi, this is Marlene Gibb with What Do You Do? And today's guest is Leonard Zane. And you want to be called, nobody knows you by Leonard, so we'll just call you Zane.
Right. Everybody uses my last name.
Right.
I like it that way.
Okay. So tell us, what do you do? Because you have a fascinating career.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're kind of like the Renaissance man.
I went into the military.
Okay.
Came back to school, got into international relations. I got a degree in that, and I also took economics as a minor at that time. And after that, then I went out and worked. I got a job in technical marketing. I was a sales engineer, and I was going to school at night, working on my MBA. And then as that progressed, I eventually got into business management of architecture and engineering firms. Since that time, I've done many works. I did actually produce a film. That was an adaptation. It was not an original. That was The In Outside the World, which was a science fiction short story by Edmund Hamilton I had read when I was just a kid. Changed my life forever. And many years later, I ended up doing it as a film and for TV. And
tell me the story. Tell us the story about.
Well, it's about a huge crisis that humanity faces, the biggest crisis they've ever faced. And the main character is, he's a high international official. In this case, I made him the UN Secretary General. And he goes to this otherworldly place to try to solve this enormous problem that there appears to be no solution for. And in this place he goes to are some of the greatest human beings in history that we know, and even of the future that we don't know. Okay. And he wants to get help from them to address this problem. And then in that, everybody eventually in the story meets a person from a future that is so distant that they cannot even imagine what this is. And this person turns out to be the last human being that will ever be. Intraverse is a science fiction story set in 2038, and that involves a family, two families actually, and children, but it's this huge cosmic metaphysical adventure. And that starts, we finally built the super collider at Waxahachie, Texas, and this leads to big things. The other one that I think you may be referring to is The Dreaded Generation.
That's a very scary one. You're talking about all this stuff, and I thought, you know, it's very plausible. It's very, very plausible.
Yes, The Dreaded Generation takes place in 2039, and it and its sequel, I wrote something called Mickey's Move, as a sequel to The Dreaded Generation. We all knew this time would come, and by 2039 it has. Nuclear weapons have become affordable and portable, and in possession of diverse terrorist groups throughout the world. Groups called SCARMs that threaten entire nations, fanatic groups that blackmail entire nations. What can be done when any country, even the proud, great, and supremely powerful United States of America, cannot protect its own people? The Dreaded Generation is grim, threatening, and very realistic. And I do draw on a lot of my international relations background and research to support that, just as Michael Crichton used to on his things.
So how is this book being distributed?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
And in fact, a number of my books, Introverse, is also on Amazon, and some more are coming out on Amazon. Well, Marlene, what I did was I wrote this thing down when I was 27. I decided my purpose in life is to want to make life beautiful. That's it. And that's very subjective, of course.
Yeah.
But I lived by that credo ever since. And so everything I did, like the architecture, well, here were these beautiful new structures that I had a part in getting the project, getting the commission, contracting for it, helping the process go through that we could actually materially create what we did without going broke.
And what about Forbidden? That's one of your favorites. Is
Oh,
Forbidden.
and by the way, I did do material that was in some of the Star Trek films. You know, I did manage to get some of my writing without credit into Star Trek 3, and then I wrote a formula on how to do a Star Trek, and that was used by Nick Meyer, who was the actual screenwriter of Star Trek 4. Yes, this is part of a two-part presentation. And this is a documentary, half-hour documentary, where I joined in with Gary, became a co-producer, rewrote some of the content, restructured it, hired a narrator, and so on. And we did this, and now we're in post-production on the sequel to this called Voices, Fight, and Empire. And this is about the Allied propaganda leaflet campaign in the Pacific War against Imperial Japanese forces that had results that are just completely unknown today and are very relevant, because this campaign was far more effective than people realize it was. And we face the same thing today, for example, in the Middle East, where there are confrontations, battles, wars going on, but very little understanding of the opposite side and empathizing with where they're coming from, and then being able to communicate and even negotiate and alter the outcome with far less loss of life.